Hi, I'm Amy. I came from San Francisco, where I'm living now, although my family is from Prague, Spain, and Germany. So when I was asked to look at these themes as it pertains to San Francisco, the migration crisis, I decided to look at both the state of political refugees, but also economic refugees. So we don't have refugee camps classically in San Francisco, but we have encampments of homeless everywhere. And a stone's throw from that are the artists and the creatives and the curators, I'm also a curator, who can no longer afford to live there. So looking at these three epidemics and San Francisco's identity as a sanctuary city, a place that is kind of fraught with homelessness and are losing all of our artists. So in doing that, we chose a venue, Minnesota Street Project, which was founded by two collectors and art supporters who basically took warehouses and turned them into way below market rental places for galleries and artists. So it was very important that the venue for this exhibition kind of also provoked some of the themes in the exhibition. So we had a traditional exhibition of artists focusing on these issues, but we also had a community action center. So we didn't want artists and attendees to just come in and look at these issues passively, but how do you get involved? So in the adjacent room to the exhibition, there were highlighted 30 organizations working on each of these issues of immigration, homelessness, and supporting artists, and that people could connect to them and all of that. We were fortunate to have incredible artists, both internationally renowned as well as locally, looking at the themes in the show. On the right is Mark Bausasaki, whose father was in Japanese internment camps. And in the below, he's taken pieces from the segregation center and repurposed them into this installation that was done in our site. We also have artists looking at homelessness. Randy Koloski and Allison O'Kay Frost built this housing structure literally in the space that was modeled off Monopoly, to kind of look at how these arbitrary decisions are made about the fate of those who are economic refugees. Summer and Laura looked at this notion of the displacement of the artists and also the impact that technology has had on this displacement. Julio Cesar Morales, his video Boy in a Suitcase is taken from an actual story of a boy from the Ivory Coast who tried to send himself in a suitcase across borders. And a lot of the artists kind of looked again at these different themes of displacement and kind of institutionalized racism and oppression and how that's kind of fed into a lot of these crises globally. On the right is Travis Somerville, who has this history of looking at racism in the United States. And here he's looking at it through basically how this is manifested internationally. Sound Made Public, those booths on the top left, one of our partners in this project and ongoing is Lava May. They're an organization that takes buses and upcycles them into mobile shower units for homeless. And so they had commissioned artists to kind of interact with these different people in the homeless community and hear their stories again so that we can all remember to connect that we're not that far away from being displaced ourselves. In addition to the Community Action Center, we also had a pop-up shop to make items more kind of both financially accessible and conceptually accessible. And then we did a ton of different programs, both public programming, private events, et cetera, with far and wide partners. There's an organization called For Freedoms. This is one of their billboards. The background is a picture of military pointing guns at Martin Luther King. So this whole notion of Heimat and this nationalism, make America great again, that's happening in the United States again. How do we look at that critically and see how that's, kind of being spread across the globe? We also wanted people to educate themselves. So we had a library that had reading lists for children, teenagers, and adults on these different topics and issues, and a new media and video action center where it was a survey across the globe of how artists, curators, and organizations are responding to these issues. We had a huge town hall about these issues that was preceded by a reading of this book, I Am Home, Portraits of Immigrant Teenagers, and then a conversation with the different kind of curators, artists, organizers, et cetera, but in the format of a town hall where, again, it was reduced this sense of equity and parity in the conversation. We also included interventions, artist-led interventions, Sanctuary City's mobile silkscreen cart. That's a social practice as well as just an art-making tool to kind of provoke these dialogues, and a Ramakano Arwister's crochet jam, which is taken from the Black heritage of sitting around and kind of knitting in conversation. We also imported two Germans to be part of this, Astrid Kammerling from the Goethe Institute and Anna Henschel at Invisible Playground, that led these walk shops around the site and throughout San Francisco relating to our own themes of migration and displacement. And then again, we were very grateful to have collaboration from the museum, from Goethe Institute, and as we decided to expand the scope of the exhibition, we reached out to different corporate sponsors, so we were very lucky that different entities, even those that are kind of villainized across the globe, such as Facebook, came in, and their art department was a supporter of us and helped us commission 2 of the different works that were kind of created specifically for the show, which is Randy Kolaski and Allison O'Kay Frost and Laura and Summer, as well as just having the collaboration of For Freedoms kind of as a national platform. The other thing I'll say about the exhibition is that all of the works were for sale, but they were for sale with the artists getting to choose an organization working on these issues that they wanted either all or some of the money to go to through the Collect for Change initiative, which is an initiative that I founded a couple of years ago with some people, again, responding, how do we respond to the issues of our time and allow artists to lead these conversations? These were some of the other entities that were really excited to be part of this, both from programmatic elements as well as financially or donating in-kind services. So I thank you for the museum and the Goethe Institute for the opportunity to do this. And we did this with, there were 2 other curators involved, Candace Huey from Riddle, who does itinerant exhibitions around the globe, and Suzanne Zuber, a German living in the Bay Area also. So it was wonderful to kind of have this cross-pollination. And this flag is by Tanya Buquera, who's a Cuban artist, and it says, "Dignity has no nationality." So this is something that we've kept kind of as the core tenet of our project.
Thank you, Amy.
Amy Kish, San Francisco, Rehome. In looking at and diving into what was done at the pavilion in Venice, it was obviously the issues of the migration crisis. And so in looking at San Francisco through that lens, some things became apparent that while we might not have as salient a status of political refugees, we have economic refugees in the terms of the homeless crisis. So we don't have refugee camps, but we have encampments of homeless everywhere. So I thought it was very important to look at the state of political and economic refugees. So we focused on San Francisco's status as a sanctuary city and immigration and migration crisis, but also the plight of the economic refugees. So the homeless, and then kind of a stone's throw from that is the flight of the creative class, that they also can no longer afford to stay in San Francisco. So we're losing all of our artists and our curators and to other cities like New York, like Los Angeles. So focused on those 3 things. San Francisco, why would even consider it an arrival city, even though in most of Doug Saunders' theses, it fails. It doesn't meet the requirements. It's still, rightly or wrongly, considered an aspirational location where innovators, entrepreneurs, across sectors, not just technology, but art, other things, go to San Francisco as kind of the height of innovation in the United States. At least they conceive of it as so. So there's, many kind of people from across the globe coming there for this kind of innovation, achievement, creativity, etc. Also because it's considered socially progressive. And also with this great influx of money, of everybody chasing the tech dollar, you also have kind of the other class of people that come to support that. So it's a very fraught and kind of polarized place, unfortunately. So it is very much an arrival city, but in a way that it's created huge issues from, homeless living on the street everywhere, even in the wealthiest neighborhoods, to, the housing crisis, creating artists needing to go and make their own environments, which Doug Saunders said, oh, that's great, but we had this huge fire called the Ghost Ship Fire where we lost 36 of our creatives and artists because they were living in unsafe housing standards with no standardization. So it's an arrival city in that people are still going there and the population is increasing at a rate that housing can't support. but it fails because it's not sustainable. It's, I joke, but it's sad that I think of San Francisco as one of the most post-apocalyptic cities in the United States, or maybe, yeah. So it's a challenging question. The key terms, I would say, again, this concept of the title of the exhibition, and it was also a community action, so it wasn't just a passive experience. It highlighted organizations working on these issues of immigration, homelessness, and flight of the creatives. But it was called Rehome, so it was about home, regarding home. Rehoming is finding new homes, new locations, and again, focusing on these notions of political and economic refugees, and this kind of financial instability that kind of is pervasive throughout the Bay Area. I would say the local collaborations were astounding. It was amazing. The more people and entities and organizations and corporations to kind of be involved to address these issues. It was a huge influx of people wanting to be part of this community and support it, and everything from supporting it financially to contributing different elements and programming. So really, at the end of the day, I think one of the most rewarding elements of it was this, the community really coming together and working together in support of these different issues. And then globally, it's been fascinating to work kind of parallel with the other curators in Caracas, Mumbai, Prague, Marseille, all these different locations to see how this lens has manifested in other cities. The notions of this exhibition, they've been pervasive for a while, but I feel like it's reaching a fever pitch across the world. And so traveling across the world to seeing this experience mirrored in other locations, it also, in my opinion, has kind of set off a chain reaction where now everywhere I look, there's another exhibition on the migration crisis, there's another. So I feel, that this kind of cross-pollination across the globe has kind of sparked something, or it was just the zeitgeist anyway, but that in many ways it was a leader in this kind of continuing to be a very significant part of the global conversation in terms of placemaking.